Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. This is going to be the first video on the channel and it's just going to be a classic general election prediction map between two candidates. Today we will be having incumbent President Joe Biden versus Republican candidate Nikki Haley. I just felt like doing something, I always wanted to do a map like this and haven't really seen too much between the two, so it's a easy topic, and I like these statistics and polls, and I want to get my thoughts out there. Just to keep it fun, we'll be going state by state in the order in which they were called in the 2020 election, and we'll get right into it. And just as a little heads up on how I will be conducting this mapping. A dark shade will represent a state in which I have factual evidence or there's a poll backing it up. Just to avoid spoilers, I will use North Dakota. I'll make up an example for there. Let's say Biden beats Haley in a poll by 5 points. That will be dark blue. If there is no poll backing up the evidence and I just believe North Dakota will go for Biden, then I will do a light blue, just so you can kind of see the mapping of where the evidence is versus where is my predictions, and you can make up your own mind about those states as we go along. So let's put this back to toss-up, and we will start off with Kentucky and Vermont. Okay, so we'll do Kentucky, which has no polls with Haley. And we have Vermont, which has no polls as well. So Vermont I will consider Vermont safe for Biden, and I will consider Kentucky safe for Haley, as those states have tended to always vote that way in recent elections. The next state we have up is West Virginia. Again, does not have any polls, so I will give that one to Haley, as it is a safe Republican state in the presidential elections. Next up, we have Virginia. Virginia does have a poll coming out 5 points ahead for Haley, so I will give that state to her. And South Carolina, as that is her home state, there is no polls, but I will give that to Haley as well. Okay, so these next group of states are all kind of all at once, so I'll do the ones that were favored for Trump first in 2020, and then I'll do the ones that were favored for Biden in 2020, and I'll distribute them. So first, for Haley, we have I will give Haley Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and that's about it there. And I will give Biden Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois. And we do have a poll out of Maryland, which does have Biden ahead by, let me double check my resources here. I didn't come prepared. Okay, it has Biden ahead by 17 points, which wasn't a September poll when Haley was polling a little worse than normal. It wasn't until October or November, but I'll keep it anyway. And Massachusetts, it has no polls. New Jersey has no polls, but are both going to Biden, and Rhode Island. Okay, now we see that Joe Biden is picking up a lead against Nikki Haley, but we do have some more states being called in now, with Arkansas and Indiana both being called for Haley, as well as North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Louisiana. Biden does pick up New York and New Mexico. Unfortunately, none of these states really have polls, so I'm just going to assume they're going to vote like how they voted in 2020, as none of these states have really seen a shift that would indicate they would vote the opposite of how they did back then. Okay, and then we had just a few states that do not have polls, and I'll just add them now. Kansas, Missouri will go to Haley. Colorado and DC will go to Biden. and I will just designate the New Hampshire electoral votes accordingly to how they did in the last election. And now we have one of the more noticeable changes coming out of New England, with New Hampshire going for Nikki Haley. As in the last two polls that came out of the state, she won by 3 and 6 points, which is a noticeable Republican lead there out of New Hampshire, and the same as out of Virginia too, with a 5-point lead for Haley. I feel like a lot of these states are very more moderate when it comes to, well, has basically a larger independent base. And with Trump, a lot of these Republican leaning independents didn't really like him, so they either just didn't vote, or they ended up maybe leaning more Democrat that year and voted for Biden. And I think a more moderate looking candidate in the eyes of the public could take them back to the Republican side, and that's why we see these two states polling for Haley. Okay, next up we have a few more states that are going to really favor Biden here. We have Washington has no polls, Oregon has no polls. California will be called for Biden, with a poll coming out with a 14-point lead over Haley. And Hawaii would be safe for Biden, but has no polls there. Idaho would be safe for Haley, but there are no polls there. And then for the two questionable ones here is Minnesota and Ohio. Minnesota has no polls for Haley, but does have a lot of polls where the Biden and Trump, Biden wins by 1 point. 2 points. Not that big of a, margin of error there. Yeah, 3 points, 3 points, 2 points, 2 points. I feel like Haley could swing the state, but just for the sake of the video, there's no actual poll. And all the polls in a general election favored a Democrat. I will give it to Biden. And then with Ohio, there a lot of polls with Trump show him winning by 10, 11, 12 points. But the polls with Haley, for some reason, are 50-50, with both candidates only having 35% of the vote. I feel like it's a lot of the idea right now that a lot of Trump supporters wouldn't support Haley in a general election. I'm sure there is a good sizable portion of it, but not enough to somehow have a 20-point drop. So I would say at the end of the day, most of these voters would be voting for Haley in a Haley-Biden general election. They may not like Haley, but they are definitely not going to vote Biden. A lot of these third-party candidates, I feel like eventually are just going to die out, because a third party's not going to win, and people aren't going to waste their vote having the person they don't like win. So I feel like ultimately Haley would win Ohio, even though there are polls showing Ohio going safe Republican. There are no polls showing Haley winning, but I'm still just going to give it to her. I mean, it makes sense. I don't know why people would just not vote. I mean, I get it if the candidate was really different, but besides Trump and Haley not liking each other, I don't really see that many policy differences, besides also foreign policy. I know that's a big one, but I don't feel like that's going to be an issue that's going to drive people away from Nikki Haley and just not vote. And now next up we have Montana. I don't think Montana has a poll with Haley in it. No, they do not. So I will give that to Haley still, because Montana I would view as a safe, presidential Republican state. Okay, now this is where the interesting parts are, okay? We're actually going to break down most of these states now. These are the swing ones. These are the ones with all the polls in them. So let's get to it. The first one we have up is Iowa. I would think that Iowa is a safe for Haley state, but there is no polls out of there. Florida is a interesting one with only one poll right now, and that poll has Biden winning by 5 points, which I'll break this down a little bit and why I believe that's not really the case. The only poll is a Biden-Haley-Kennedy ballot, and I know Kennedy's a more popular candidate, but a lot of these Republicans know that supporting Kennedy is going to elect Biden. And they may support Kennedy right now in the polls, but it's going to drop. And I feel like this is a bad poll too. There's only one poll, only 800 people out of Florida, so I'm not even tempted. I might just put it as a non-poll state for now. I'm sure closer, when the primaries get more heated with some more states coming up, we might get some more polls out of there. But it is definitely a solid red state. For Texas, we have a poll with Haley winning by 4 points, so we will give that to her. Out of Arizona, we see Haley pulling a really high 7 to 9 points out of Arizona. And this is a state where Biden did not win by much in that state. And now it's safely red under Haley. And as well, you see it with Trump too. Even though you see Haley pulling really good in these states, Trump is starting to perform better than Biden in these states too. Next up is Maine, and Maine is actually one that I feel comfortable. I will give Maine at large to Haley, and the District 2 I'll give to Haley. And I'll explain my reasoning here. Out of a recent poll, the Maine at large was only Biden plus 1. And on average, nationally, Haley pulls in an extra 4%. And that's pretty safe to, more than Trump. And that's safe to assume that Haley would get that 1% in Maine. And so I will predict that she will win Maine at large. She will win the 2nd district, but she will probably still lose the first one. I'm kind of tempted to put Minnesota back to Haley, because by that logic, I could see her winning Minnesota. I'm going to put it back to Tossup for now. We'll revisit it later. The next state we have up is Wisconsin. Wisconsin and Michigan are the same. They both poll really good for Haley at a 10-point lead over Biden in multiple polls. These two states are more than guaranteed for Haley. And out of Pennsylvania, let's check my little list here. Yes, she has a 10-point lead, 10-point lead, 5-point lead. Pennsylvania is more than safe for Haley. Strong, safe red for Haley. I have seen that Pennsylvania was kind of leading Trump, kind of going back for Biden, so it's back and forth. And I noticed I missed Utah, so we'll go back and get Utah. There was no polls out of there last time I checked. And let's see if there's anything out of Nevada. Yes, Nevada, Haley plus 9, Nevada, Haley plus 6. So I will give that to Haley. And that's a really good showing for the Republican Party in Nevada if they're showing out like that. If you look at the last few elections, Nevada, I can't remember the last time they went red in a general election. given I only really started paying attention to politics in 2016. So I'll keep Minnesota under Biden for now, just to at least make him look a little better here. North Carolina, see if there's any polls out of there. For North Carolina, there is one poll with a Haley +3, and that is with Kennedy as well. So that's a pretty solid poll to show that she's in the lead there. Because even with the Kennedy support, she's still winning, so I'll give that to her. As I don't really feel like a lot of those Kennedy supporters would vote for Biden. The only reason I didn't do that for Florida was because Biden was in the lead there. And lastly, for Georgia, Haley +3, Haley +5, Haley +3, Haley +6. And the only polls where Biden leads is with a Kennedy independent ticket, which again, you could argue that basically shows that Haley's still winning there, because most of them would go back. So I'll give that to Haley. And this is the final. Oh, wait. Forgot Alaska. Did they have a poll? I don't know. No, they obviously they wouldn't have a poll. Okay, so I'm just gonna ballpark that for Haley, because a lot of the Alaskan rural population tends to lean more Democrat, and I would feel like with the underperformance of Biden and Haley seeing more of a moderate, I can definitely see them shifting a little bit more towards the Republican side, even though they were still a Republican state in the presidential elections recently. I could definitely see Haley still winning that state. And this is my final prediction map. I just made all the colors the same to make it a little easier on the eyes. But this is my current prediction for how it would look. I mean, obviously, we're probably not going to get this due to the primaries and how they're going. But it is a interesting map to look at, as not many people have been showing the hypothetical matchup between the two. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You don't really need to subscribe. I don't know if I'm going to be making more of these videos. I'll see how this one does, and then I might go from there. And you take care, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you win like the lottery or something, so you become really happy, and then if you don't win the lottery, go hang out at like a humane society, go play around with some of the dogs who need some love. I don't know, do something that makes you happy, do something that makes other people happy. Take care, goodbye.